Zimbabwe, for tuning into yet another informative edition of your program. This is Agricultural New Directions, Agribusiness in support of Vision 2030. This is where we discuss everything agriculture. We are not just limited to field crops such as soybeans, tobacco, etc. We also look at the vegetable industry in line with our horticultural recovery plan of our Ministry of Lands, Agriculture, Fisheries, Water and Rural Development. Now, in this very episode, we are going to be looking at the vegetable industry here in Zimbabwe. You would find that we have a lot of farmers who are interested, but they do not know how to go about it. As such, we are going to be looking at the industry and even the vegetable calendar, what it entails and what it looks like. To discuss this and more, I've taken the liberty of inviting Wendy Matasho Mazura. Wendy, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Wadza. It's always a pleasure to be on this platform.
Yes, as we get into our discussion, the first question that I would want you to answer for our audience there at home: is it possible for a person, for a Zimbabwean citizen, to make a living off of vegetable production only?
That's a very pertinent question indeed. Because what happens with horticulture, if you look at it, it has a wide array of options that our farmer can invest in and can also embark on as a business. Why? Because horticulture is such that if you look at in terms of consumption, we consume a lot of vegetables. Annually, we consume a lot of vegetables, different vegetables, for health reasons, also just to complement our diet. Then the second reason is because with horticulture, the turnaround time is quite fast. Unlike what we have with field crops, which will require about 4 to 5 months for you to say now you have turned over and you have harvested your crop. Look at you, a seasoned tobacco farmer. Tobacco is a 13-month crop. But with horticulture, you can have a crop that you can harvest in 65 days, 75 days, 80 days. You are harvesting and you are going to the market. It means within every month and a half, 2 months, you are selling something and you are going to the market. So that's sustainable. Even if it's fees that you want to pay, you can make it such that you are planning, so that you know that maybe 3 times, 4 times a year, I need a lump sum. So I need crops that are going to give me a lump sum amount of money of this amount, so that you're going to send your children to school. And you can also be having other sustainable businesses that can be happening at that time. So we really advocate for our farmers to venture into horticulture production, a colorful business indeed of crops that you can establish and be selling constantly and continuously.
You did touch on a very pertinent issue of being timeless in production. We are going to be looking at periods of shortages and gluts as we move on with our program. But at this point in time, Wendy, you'd find that 90% of the horticultural produce is water, is made up of water.
True.
Even if you look at cabbages, tomatoes, watermelons, they have a high constitution of water. Can you talk to us in terms of investing in irrigation for that farmer who's looking to get into horticultural production?
In horticulture production, you find that these crops are very time sensitive, and they are also sensitive to moisture stress. So if you want to venture into horticulture, you need to get your irrigation right. You need to know, is it going to be drip irrigation? If it's overhead, you need to know the investment of irrigation that you need to make. Which is why we always talk about intensity in horticulture production versus scales of production or extensive production. Where if you know that maybe you have 50 hectares of land, why not invest your irrigation for about 2 hectares, 5 hectares or 10 hectares, a block at a time, so that you know that at any given point, even through the rainy season, this year we have an El Nino, which is a season which is very unpredictable for us in terms of the rainfall amount we're going to get. So you don't want to then put a high value crop at that time and be found wanting when the crop is at flowering or reproductive stage and there's no irrigation to support it. So you need to make sure that you have your irrigation right from the word go. And the most important irrigation type that we promote in horticulture is drip irrigation. Why? Because it's also effective and efficient in its application of water. It also conserves the moisture for the crop, and it also localizes the amount of water that you're using, which is to say if you have limited source of water, you can do more with drip irrigation versus other wasteful options of irrigation that might be available. But nonetheless, irrigation is irrigation. If we have the overhead irrigation, we need to understand that it comes also at a cost where you need higher volumes of water, and the disease pressure might be higher as well, because it's also coming in on the leaves. There's a lot of application of water on the leaves, which can promote the development of foliar diseases in horticulture, which can reduce the profitability and productivity.
Now, if you look at the calendar where we are in Zimbabwe in this season, you would find that we are in a season where we are establishing our field crops. We have our tobacco farmers start transplanting their crops. We have soybean farmers, maize farmers. Can you talk to us in terms of what kind of vegetables can a farmer who's into tobacco production also maybe invest in to ensure that these two are working hand in glove together? It is an investment that is seeking to support each other.
I like the concept that you are bringing home, the concept of cash flows.
Yes.
You know, you need to be having a constant supply of money on the farm so that you can run your operation successfully and so that you can also have happy employees who are going to deliver a service. So it's very, very important. So in horticulture, what is important is for you to understand the fact that there are families that are available in any crop. So if you're going to be establishing a particular crop family, you need to understand its seasonality and its applicability at a particular time. So in terms of our horticultural crops in Zimbabwe, we are quite fortunate that we can produce a wide range of crops throughout the year, except for those crops which are sensitive to frost. And a lot of the horticultural crops are sensitive to frost. The crops that are not sensitive to frost, which is the window from May to around July, are the onions, the brassicas, and also some other crops that can be done in frost-free areas, which is to say you can do your solanaceous crops, which are your tomatoes, your peppers, your eggplants, you can do your brassicas, you can do your cucurbits, which is also a wide family which people like to do on open field, which includes your cucumbers, your butternuts, your watermelon, the refreshing watermelon, which is a high percentage of water. So it's very, very important for you to understand that you can do all those families in frost-free periods of the year, which is to say during the winter you can avoid them, but during the winter time you can do your onion successfully. Yes. If anything, your onion really does love that cold and cool weather that might prevail at that time. Even the garlic as well, it also prefers that environment. So which is to say, if you are planning to do your onion in winter, by now you should be planning to do your seedbed. Planning is of the essence, because if you fail to plan once, you are planning to fail. Yes. So if you know that you want to do your onion, you to transplant your onion in May, you know that the seedbed is going to take about a month and a half for you to establish. January, February, you should be doing your seedbed so that you catch the planting window for your onion crop. Then after the winter period, you come in around July, mid-July to end of July, early August, so that you beat others to the market. You come in early, you establish those crops which were frost sensitive, which is to say your cucurbits, you start putting them down. At that time, the ground temperatures will be still a bit low. So it means in terms of the germination, it might take a bit of time. But once the germination comes out and the heat units start picking up, it means that you have a crop that has an advantage on the market, because the supply at the time when you're going to sell will be low. So you can determine your price. You can set the price at that time. Exactly. So it's very, very important to understand those dynamics. Okay. So the timing of your crop is also married to the type of crop which you are doing. So there are families that want winter, there are families that don't want winter. But in summer, allow me to emphasize the importance of the fact that there is a higher disease pressure for all horticultural crops which are going to be done in summer. Which is to say, at this time, when you establish any crop, you need to be a step ahead in terms of your disease management, your insect pest management for all the horticultural crops which you are going to be doing in summer. And we'll touch in detail on some of them as we proceed with the program.
Finally, Wendy, as we close this segment, talk to that farmer. Some might be watching from the diaspora, saying, I want to come to Zimbabwe and get into vegetables production, but first I need maybe 10,000 to establish a full set of a greenhouse. Talk to us in terms of demystifying that misconception of saying I cannot get into horticulture unless I have a greenhouse.
You need to start where you are. You don't need to wait for perfect environmental conditions for you to start. Then looking at the greenhouse as a business or as an investment for those farmers who might be out there who want to invest in it, it's lucrative. But you also need to understand that in terms of the service provision that you're going to get, you need to invest in the right people, the right technical expertise that are there, so that you are constructing something which is durable. So it's important for you to do your homework. It's better for you to do a smaller sized greenhouse the right way than to go extensive and come in after a year or two with a structure which was meant to last for 5 years, which will have dilapidated, and maybe the paper is already worn or torn off because of the prices that you will have invested in trying to make a saving. Yes, the greenhouse business is good. We also promote it. We want our farmers to get into it. So the important thing is to start. Yes. Start now. There's no time like the present. There's no perfect condition for starting. You just need to start.
Thank you so much, Wendy. That was very detailed. There you heard it, viewers. We're looking at the vegetable industry here in Zimbabwe, what it takes for you as a farmer to invest in vegetables production. We're going to go on a short commercial break. We'll be right back with this and more in the second segment. Stay tuned. Thank you, Zimbabwe, for staying tuned to Agricultural New Directions, Agribusiness in support of Vision 2030. We are here in the second segment of your program, where we are looking at the vegetable industry as a whole. We are also looking at the vegetable calendar and how farmers can take advantage of it to ensure that they are profitable in their ventures. Now, viewers, we encourage you to be a part of these conversations. Feel free to get in touch with the producer, Wadzanai Manyore. It's on 0772-807-506. Alternatively, you can like our Facebook page, Agribusiness with Wadzanai. Make a follow-up on this episode and more, and leave your comments and suggestions. They are most welcome to us. It's Agribusiness with Wadzanai. We are also now available on Twitter, formerly known as X. It's at Agribusiness110, where most of these discussions do take place. Wendy, we are here in the second segment. Welcome back.
Thank you so much, Wadza.
Can you talk to us in terms of having figures and your calculations being conserved and reserved when it comes to calculating on paper? Because there is a huge disparity between what's on the paper and coming to the field. Talk to that farmer and encourage them.
It's very, very important. Otherwise, our farmers will stroke or have a heart attack. Because what will be happening is they over expect and then they don't get the results that they will have expected. But before we get into that, as we were discussing earlier on, we spoke about the importance of staggering your crop and also growing different crops. So we are seeing in this particular field here, we have a dried up crop of sugar bean. We have fine bean there, which you are currently enjoying. We have watermelons. We have a wide range of different crops, which means on the market, you are a one-stop shop. You are providing different options to the farmer and making it more profitable for the farmer to be selling different things. Then coming back to the issue where you highlighted the importance of the numbers. Yes, numbers are important. We need to be guided by numbers, but we need to have conservative and realistic numbers. You don't want to say when you get your packet of seeds and you're told it has 5,000 seeds, then you start calculating your profit from that 5,000 seeds.
Yes,
I'm going to get Maria Cut. Yes. I'm going to get 500. I'm going to get 1,000. That is very misleading. Why? Because when we establish our different crops in the field, there are some field conditions that exist that might limit the productivity of each and every seed that might be in the packet. Where you find that the field losses might occur even from the germination itself, where a seasoned farmer should be able to factor in the germination percentage of the crop, where we encourage you to have a buffer of around 3 to 5%, if not 10%, depending on the field conditions and your level of experience, so that you know that if you have established 5,000 seeds, maybe you end up with 4,500 or 4,700 because of the field losses that might occur. The irrigation efficiency, we spoke of the drip irrigation. Some drippers might clog along the system, where you find that maybe there is some sand that is accumulated on a particular wall, and you find that after some time, one of the seeds or one of the plants or the seedlings dies out. So you lose in terms of your plant population in that way. And we might even have some diseases or insect pests. You can even have cutworms. If you are not a seasoned farmer and you have not applied your cutworm control on time or at planting, the cutworms will come in and cut at the base where the stem meets the ground. And then they cut. They've reduced your plant population. So dear farmers, we urge you to have a conservative approach in terms of calculating your numbers and not just put pen to paper. When you are sitting in your office, you need to physically go to the field and make sure that you understand the population that you are putting in, whether or not it's going to come out. You need to work for it.
Now, when I want us to talk about chemical use and chemical application, you would find that most of our horticultural crops, especially vegetables, can you talk to us in terms of chemical use to control your insect pests, to control your diseases, and to control your weeds when it comes to vegetables in general?
That is a very, very serious issue. You know, globally, there is a talk about health issues and farmers and the consumer being more conscious of what they eat and what they consume. And it comes back to us as the farmers. We are the ones who are feeding the nation. We are the ones who are feeding the world. But the impetus is on us to make sure that whatever we are doing, we have a human element to it, and understanding that whatever we do, it has a ripple effect on the future generations that we are going to get. With that said, we also want to encourage our farmers to employ an integrated pest management approach. approach, which seeks to then complement, yes, it's a business, and you want to make sure that no disease affects your crop for a very long time, which can then result in a reduction on the yield. But you also need to make sure that you're doing it in a way that you're not also then jeopardizing or compromising the health of the consumer.
Yes.
So with that said, the use of agrochemicals, the farmers are still going to do it. But there are now some chemicals which are more environmentally friendly. When you look at, in terms of the naming and the labels that we have on the chemicals we have in Zimbabwe, we have triangles. So on each and every triangle, from the amber, the red, the green, the orange, they have different scales of poison that they might have in the chemical that they are applying and its effects to the end user. So with that in mind, when we choose our chemicals, we need to make sure that we select chemicals that are more environmentally friendly, which are the green label chemicals. But those green label chemicals, the farmers should not mistake them to say they don't have any chemical at all.
Yes.
They still have
Say
some
maybe they are
degree.
weak.
Yes, so they still have some degree of chemical. They will work and serve the purpose, but they will then say 3-day intervals, 4-day intervals for you to come in and harvest. You know, at some point, there was a farmer who was applying Temic long ago before it was banned. A chemical that took around 28 days, still in the system, the post-harvest interval. But it was being applied in lettuce, a 6 to 7 week crop. That's daylight robbery to the farmer, to the end user and the consumer as well. So it's very, very important for us to understand the post-harvest interval of any chemical that we are using, so that we don't shortchange the people who are going to be consuming our produce.
Thank you so much, Wendy, for raising such pertinent issues in vegetable production, where we are looking at chemical use and how you can manage your crop as a farmer. You would find that at the end of the day, some of our Zimbabwean farmers end up maybe having a love-hate relationship with vegetable production, citing that maybe, you know what, they are easily affected by diseases and pests. On that note, we're also going to go on a short commercial break. We'll be right back with this and more in the third and final segment. Stay tuned. Thank you, Zimbabwe, for staying tuned to Agricultural New Directions, Agribusiness, in support of Vision 2030. We are here in the third and final segment of your program, where I'm just munching on these fresh carrots, and I should say they are very tasty, which is what we are advocating for on this platform, vegetable productions for healthier options when it comes to our diet and feeding regimen schemes. Wendy, welcome back. We are here in the third and final segment.
Thank you so much, Wadza.
Wendy, I want us to touch briefly on the vegetable calendar, what it entails, and how Zimbabwean farmers can take advantage of the calendar.
So in terms of the vegetable calendar, Wadza, the important thing is for the farmer to start at the market. You need to start by understanding where you're going to sell your produce first and what your market desires in terms of preference. If it's a particular crop, say for example, you're going to be doing your cauliflower. Between your cauliflower and broccoli, they are both brassicas, but there's a market that is going to prefer broccoli over cauliflower. And if you're going to produce a lot of cauliflowers, you know them, the nature of the cauliflower. It's a very wide head, which needs to be wide for a long time on the shelf so that it's sold and the market prefers it. So in terms of your vegetable calendar, the first thing is to know where you're going to sell your produce before you even establish the crop. Then the second thing is to understand the crop that you are establishing, whether or not it is in season. Because you might hear at this point some farmers saying we want to start establishing onion, but the onion that we have in Zimbabwe currently does not do very well in summer. You want an onion to be established in winter. So in terms of your calendar, if you are doing your cropping program, it means you are then slaughtering in the onion around May, which is to say that is when you establish, knowing that maybe it's going to go through the winter period and you can sell after that. Then if you look at maybe a crop like the kicker beets, where you find your watermelon, your butternuts, your squash, the family, which is very healthy and delicious. But if you're going to be establishing, say for example, your watermelon right now, when the rainy season is started, the watermelon, in terms of its skin, is not able to withhold a lot of water if it rains extensively in the summer season, whereby you end up having the watermelon splitting in the field and you incur losses, which means in terms of the seasonality of the watermelon, the rainy or summer season is not the best. The best time would be to come in end of July to early August for you to get value. So that's what we really want to promote our farmers to be doing. So your calendar should have different crops staggered at different stages so that you can get value when you're selling different crops which will be wanted by the market. Horticulture is very friendly and forgiving. The market is going to buy the whole year. So you need to find ways to establish something that is not which is not flooded on the market, so that you get more value and you get more money.
Finally, Wendy, before we talk about markets, I want us to look briefly and talk about issues surrounding trainings. Can you maybe outline briefly that importance of having a good relationship between these two? And also, could you emphasize on the importance of citing that it is not very difficult for a farmer to be a vegetable farmer?
True.
We have farmers in Mutoko, we have farmers maybe in Murewa who are producing their tomatoes successfully without having much of training or maybe paying hundreds of dollars to be taught how to produce a tomato. Talk to us about it before we move on to markets.
Whenever you want to venture into any cropping venture, you need to understand that there are experts in that particular field. So you need to knock on the expertise of those people who have done it before you. Why do you want to pay the school fees when other people have already paid it before? So you need to go there, get some knowledge, get some experiences that they have gone through, so that you can also hone your craft as you move forward and get a better appreciation and understanding of where you want to go. Then looking at the importance of the trainings as well, there are some farmer field schools that will be advertised by different organizations. You need to also go and mingle and interact with other horticulture farmers so that you can learn from them how they are doing it, where you can improve in terms of your enterprise. Then the field days as well, they then come into play. Field days are very important. They are look and learn opportunities for you to go practically on the field. See for yourself with your own eyes. You know, we are doubting Thomases. We really want to see what is happening for ourselves to believe. So once you have gone there, that visual imprint of what is happening in the field is then going to last you longer and give you a lasting impression to want to keep working for your crop and get the value. So it's very, very important for us to go on field days and for training.
How do you make sure that as a farmer you are producing in line with market expectations? Most of the time we have periods or situations whereby a farmer is producing their carrots, for example, but the farmer, maybe the market saying your carrots is too long, or my carrots benda, or your carrots are too thick for our expectations. In terms of producing in line with what the market wants, because that is where that aspect of being profitable and lucrative lies. Can you talk to us? How can a farmer ensure that I am producing in line with what Mbare wants, or the boarding school I'm producing for wants, or even maybe the people I am living within my society wants?
It's very important, Wadza, to know what your market prefers. Because when you look at even your tomato, there are some consumers who want a medium-sized tomato and a small tomato. If it's an onion, they just want to cut once and cook once and not store it for a long time. So you need to do your market, your homework first, to understand, do they prefer a long or a lean carrot? Do they prefer the fine bean or the sugar bean, which is going to be, or the snapping peas? So you need to understand all those dynamics. Then Wadza, allow me as we conclude to talk about the importance of the environment and sustainability, because we are moving hand in glove with sustainable initiatives that the world is currently talking about. So we also need to take care of our environment. We need to take care of the bees as they exist in our community. So the bees, they play a very important role in terms of the flowering process for most horticultural crops. So we need to make sure that we plant flowers that are going to promote pollination. Some people are going to plant it as a hedge at the edges of the field. Some are going to plant it as flowers in rows, which are colorful and attractive for the bees to come through. As they are doing their business, whatever they are doing in the field, they are then also giving back and making sure that our crop then produces the desired results. So we need to be sustainable. We also need to make sure that we are using agrochemicals safely and the right way, and the disposal of the containers that will have been used in agrochemical sprays that will be done in the field. We need to be responsible. Even when our workers are working in the field, they need to have the right equipment, they need to have the right protective clothing, so that we are also not found wanting and we are speaking to global standards. Yes. Because if you're going to be exporting Wadza, you need to have met the global certifications. Yes. So there are organizations that are available. They can assist the farmer in making sure that they secure global markets, but global markets need global certificates.
Thank you so much, Wendy, for such a detailed presentation and taking your time to appear on our platform looking at the vegetable industry here in Zimbabwe. It was a pleasure having you with us today.
Thank you so much, Wadza. It's always a pleasure, and I'm happy today we are enjoying a lot of fresh produce.
At this point in time, I've taken the liberty of inviting Professor Obed Jiri. He is the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Lands, Agriculture, Fisheries, Water and Rural Development right here in Zimbabwe. Prof. Jiri, thank you for gracing our platform with your presence today.
Thank you so much, Watsana.
We are holding beetroots, which speaks to healthy living and maybe a shift in our feeding schemes or diet plans that we have in our families. I would like us to talk about the horticultural recovery plan that is in place as a ministry. Your sentiments, your views, and maybe some of the strategies that is employed to ensure that it is a success.
So yes, thank you, Wazanai. The horticulture recovery and growth plan is in place, and by that we are guided of where we are going. Basically, we want to grow our horticulture industry. You would know that it was a $200 million export industry, and it went down to less than 60 million US dollar industry per year. We are happy to announce that right now we are working on, we are looking at an industry that has grown back to more than 80 million US dollar per year and growing. So we now have crops that we never used to grow, your blueberries, which are now, we are the biggest producer in the world, producing the best quality of blueberry in the world. We are now also able to export our citrus to China, which we never used to be able to do directly before. So now under the China trade protocol, we can now export directly. So farmers are now venturing big into citrus. If you go to Matabeleland South, we have big producers now who have grown thousands and thousands of citrus plants to export and for export. So we are growing now with our industry, and of course we don't forget our local production, where we now have a lot of companies venturing into production of high quality seed for vegetables for local and for export. So we're looking at a $300 million industry by 2025.
Thank you so much, Prof. Shiri. Finally, as we round off this segment, maybe your word of advice to our farming community, you'd find that vegetable production is highly susceptible to pests, insect pests and diseases. You want to produce high value crops that are acceptable to the market. And here we are in the summer cropping season, where we have rainfall, which comes with pests and diseases. Your word of advice to our viewers, our farming community who are watching you, interface with them.
So definitely pests and diseases are one of the risks that farmers must avoid, and we on the good agronomic practices, your integrated pest management is key, and these they differ from area to area, but wherever you are, our extension officers are there to give you on spot localized and specialized tailor-made advice on how you can manage your particular pests and diseases. So it's even now possible to grow your vegetables during the rainy season when the pest pressure is at its peak.
Thank you so much, Prof. Shiri, for taking your time to appear on our platform. It was a pleasure having you with us today.
Thank you so much, Wazanai.
On that note, viewers, we've come to the end of this program. It was a pleasure having you with us today. I'm also on Instagram. It's W Manyore, and the crew behind the scenes. Have yourselves a fabulous evening. Thank you for watching.